Alrighty, guys. So we are now going to be talking about the Steelers draft, and we're going to be also talking about now George Pickens. So George Pickens gets traded to the Dallas Cowboys. This happens 2 days ago. George Pickens, a mammoth wide receiver, very, very talented, big wide receiver, gets traded to the Dallas Cowboys. Pretty fascinating move. The Steelers get back a 5th-round pick and a future 3rd-round pick next year in this trade. So what do we think about this trade of George Pickens to the Dallas Cowboys? I've talked to a lot of Steelers friends in my life, and they've said that they would have had trouble paying both of DK Metcalf and George Pickens, and they're deciding now, the Steelers are, that they're going to be heading in a direction where they're going to be focusing on defense. They're going to be focusing on line of scrimmage play. However, we look at the Steelers now, I mean, they've let go of a lot of their production. I mean, Najee Harris is gone. George Pickens is now no longer there. Their quarterback, Russell Wilson, and Justin Fields are both gone, and they're now relying on Broderick Jones. Their offensive line is just okay. They made a move to get an older Metcalf. Like, Metcalf's like 28 years old, has battled some injuries, and the Steelers really don't have another number 2 wide receiver. So now let's really analyze this. So the Steelers get a 3rd-round pick, but the Steelers, they don't go out there and they don't get the guy from Iowa State, Noel. They don't do that. They really didn't draft another wide receiver. So, Roman Wilson, who's a 3rd-round pick, or the guy Darnell Washington from Georgia, I mean, these guys are 3rd-round picks need to be like starters. 3rd-round picks need to be pretty damn good players. 2nd-round picks need to be really good players. And then 1st-round picks need to be all pro and need to be players. And you look right now at the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I'm going to just view their roster. I really don't like this move by the Steelers. I think that you could have had Pickens. I think you could have had DK Metcalf. You could have even rolled on with Justin Fields, had Justin Fields and Will Howard as your quarterbacks instead of trying to go get Aaron Rodgers. So, man, maybe Justin didn't want to sign with the Steelers, but now you're relying on Will Howard, Jaylen Warren, Caleb Johnson. It's a lot. And you have TJ Watt, you have these older players. Are you going to eventually trade TJ Watt next year in the draft to go get a quarterback? Because in this division right now, Cincinnati's defense is probably going to be better. The Ravens are going to be fantastic. The Browns, you should hopefully beat the Browns and sweep the Browns, unlike what you did last year. But it's really going to come down. I think Roman Wilson and Calvin Austin are going to be huge parts of this offense. Pat Freiermuth, I think, is fine, but I don't think that Freiermuth, I don't think he has that next level in the middle of the defense to get. I think slots are so important in the NFL. Chase lines up in the slot. Amon-Ra lines up in the slot. Like, DK Metcalf was so effective because you had Tyler Lockett in the slot. And right now for the Steelers, I mean, you have Scotty Miller, who's an older wide receiver, almost a practice squad guy, 32 years old. Ben Skoranek, who I like, very good special teams guy. You're really relying on Calvin Austin. Still have Robert Woods on this roster. And then I think Roman Wilson is the big X factor of this offense. You're going to either have to have Calvin or Roman Wilson be very, very good in the middle of the field. But I'm telling y'all that I was a big fan of this wide receiver core with George and with DK. And by the way, I think that Pickens would have went off this year, and then at the trade deadline, like, what is that, probably the middle of the season, you could have even gotten back a 1 instead of, having to make this, this deal in this contract. So I know that Pickens must have been frustrating to deal with, but I still think as a wide receiver, like what I knew outside of Pittsburgh, like I think on social media, like Pickens kept pretty quiet. Now maybe internally he was really hard to coach or be around, but he seemed like a guy that's like, I think he seemed like a guy that's kind of fine to be around. But the Steelers, when you made that move for Metcalf, I thought that the Steelers, by giving away a second-round pick, I really thought that the Steelers were going in a win-now mode with maybe trying to get Aaron Rodgers. I thought they were going win now, and if you're going win now, you need good weapons. And George Pickens and Metcalf are really, really good weapons. And you could have maybe tried to get like a Xavier Restrepo. You know, you should have tried to get somebody in the draft. You need slot receivers. You need to utilize the middle of the field, right? And now the quarterbacks on this roster are going to be Mason Rudolph and Will Howard. So, you know, for Arthur Smith, I mean, Caleb Johnson, who's going to have to be the most valuable player on the Steelers offense? It might have to be Caleb Johnson as a rookie, which running backs as rookies, especially guys who play at Iowa who are around 22 years old, like running backs can be damn good as rookies. Running backs usually thrive in their second, in their third, and fourth year, in their first part of their contract before they hit 26 and 27 years old. From 21, 22 to about 26 is the prime of the running back, and then 27 and 28, you could squeeze a couple more years out like Saquon's doing, and then when you hit 30, it's about done. I say that as a 30-year-old. It's pretty crazy, you know, when you hit 30 years old, like how just, you know, your life and how everything is just, unfortunately, like you just turn into the age of the devalued running back. But I was jacked and excited about this Steelers team with Metcalf and Pickens both side by side because defenses are loading up towards the middle, playing cover two shells, and you can use those guys on the outside. It also opens up the running game. So now I guess maybe Will Howard really is going to be the quarterback of the future that you're going to be playing in this offense. And I guess you're going to get a full year of Will Howard. I think the Steelers are going to like Will Howard. I actually think he's going to do well enough maybe in this offense for the Steelers to maybe bypass going out and getting Drew Aller next year or going out there and getting Arch Manning. I mean, look at the quarterback class for next year. I mean, Lagway's not eligible, I don't believe. Lenore Sellers is eligible, but I think Lenore's just going to need he's only played football 1 year. All right. And he's a good running quarterback, but is he like this, you know, is he this finished, you know, product with throwing the football and seeing and reading defenses? And he also loses an offensive coordinator in Dowell Loggins. It's actually really good. So the Steelers are so stuck right now. You know, the other two teams in the division have quarterbacks, and the Cleveland Browns are now ammoed next year in the first round to be your competitors. And they also have options at quarterback. They have Dylan Gabriel. They have Shedeur Sanders that they drafted. They're probably going to get quarterback even maybe more likely right than just having Will Howard as your only option. And then next year, the Browns have a first-round pick as well. So George Pickens is like a top 12, top 10 wide receiver when he's right. Now, last year he was injured with that hamstring, and that was really frustrating because they sorely missed him down the stretch of the season. But I'm disappointed with this trade. I think you could have gotten a second out of George Pickens. Like, I think he's that good, that talented. I also think the Dallas Cowboys, which they never do, I would sign Pickens because CeeDee Lamb's getting a little bit older. Like, I would sign Pickens I would give him $28 million a year over 4 years, which is a really good deal for George Pickens, who's hurt a little bit, whose production hasn't been that great. On the front end, I'd sign Pickens so you don't get into a damn bidding war because the Cowboys now have given up a third and a fifth, which is decent value for them. But for the Dallas Cowboys, I really like this, and I also kind of like that they're getting Joe Milton. They're running it back with Schottenheimer, so they're desperate to win and make waves. So now the Cowboys have ceedee and they have Lamb. They don't have a running back to speak of. I guess it's the guy Rico Dowdle's probably going to be their starting running back. Their tight ends are good. They have Schoonmaker. They have Jake Ferguson. They have a couple of tight ends there that are actually pretty decent. They could have even drafted Tyler Warren. All right, and you have Dak Prescott, and Dak's going to have to play really well, and his arm is going to have to be good to get the ball out to Pickens, to get the ball out to ceedee Lamb. I also think that you have the guy, the speedster out of South Alabama that I like a little bit on that team that contributed last year a bit. The defense is it's kind of getting spotty. I mean, you lose Jordan Lewis, Van Der Esch retires, the guy from Texas who's your best linebacker. They're just thin, I think, on both sides of the ball. Like DeMarcus Lawrence, like their team is getting old. Zach Martin, they're not a congruent ball club. The Redskins are getting better. I think that they're going to be overvalued a little bit. I mean, if you think about it, the Redskins had only one big playoff win last year, and that was against Detroit. That was really, really injured. And then they got their doors blown off when they got to Philly. So they barely beat Tampa. They have a very impressive win against Detroit. Okay, their offensive line is okay. Their wide receivers, I guess now they have Debo, but is Debo going to be healthy? It's just this team doesn't know how to respond to success. Like their offseason now, instead of being the hunter, they're the hunted in the offseason. And no one's going to be surprised about Jaden Daniels. And oftentimes there's a sophomore slump after a really good rookie season. Now, you do keep Cliff Kingsbury. The Eagles should be very solid. I think they're mature enough to handle success. And the Giants' defense is going to be pretty damn good. So you look at this division right now, the Giants, it's possible for them to beat the Cowboys, although that hasn't happened very often. All right, but for Dallas, you're taking a shot on Joe Milton. You're taking some chances. You're taking Schottenheimer. They are the team that will take chances on players like George Pickens, all right, that maybe have been frustrating personality-wise to deal with, like one game he didn't block and so on and so forth. But I think that George, honestly, seems like a really nice guy and seems like you're pretty much able to work with him. So I think the Cowboys easily win this trade. I think the Steelers are screwed. They didn't draft any wide receivers, all right? Their offensive line is still kind of shoddy. Defensively, they're going to be good, but they're not good enough to compete in this AFC. They're not good enough to compete now with Buffalo, with Kansas City. They're not good enough to compete with Baltimore. They're not good enough to compete with the Chargers, even with the Denver Broncos. So they're totally in the middle right now. And then who are they going to be at quarterback? And then with Mike Tomlin, in his 15th year, I don't believe that Pittsburgh fans are going to have patience to deal with a Will Howard or Mason Rudolph. And the offense is pretty much just DK Metcalf. And if you take Metcalf out of the game, I don't think that Freiermuth is going to burn you for 140 yards at the wide receiver position. You needed why didn't you spend on an Evan Ingram? Why don't you have a middle-of-the-field presence that's actually respected? So why did you have to give away Pickens? Why? He could have had a great year with DK. Then you could have traded him for a first-round value if you didn't like what you were seeing. I bet Pickens wanted out of Pittsburgh. And I guess that Omar Khan, said that as much today. And the fact that they couldn't get a second, I guess they are sending Pickens to a very desirable destination. He's from the state of Alabama. He played at Georgia. So Dallas, Texas is a premier franchise in the NFL and very close to home for George Pickens and family. I think he'll be ecstatic to play with Dak Prescott and to get to the Cowboys. I could see him being like a total stud. I think it's just frustrating that the Steelers didn't get more out of George, and I just see the flashes with George Pickens, and I think that he can be a phenomenal receiver. I'm excited to see one of my favorite coaches, Junior Adams, that was up there in Oregon and who worked with Cooper Kupp at Eastern Washington. Junior Adams is awesome. He's a stud, and I can't wait to see him now get to coach ceedee and George Pickens, so I'm really happy for Junior Adams, all right, in this whole deal. And I think that the Cowboys got a lot better. Their team isn't perfect by any means, but this is some much-needed juice to the Dallas Cowboys. I think the Cowboys destroyed this trade. I mean, getting a third-rounder, a medium third-round pick for George Pickens, a top 12, top 10 wide receiver in the game, I love it. And I think that George Pickens, who's only 24 right now, I absolutely think you should sign him to a 4-year deal. And I think he's going to be a massive talent. And you're not going to be terrible if George Pickens is going to be one of your best offensive players. He's going to make plays. He's going to swing ball games. I'm really excited about this player because he hasn't dealt with great OCs for passing game, hasn't dealt with awesome quarterback situation. So Dak is going to be the best quarterback that he's going to play for by far. The most accurate and best quarterback. So Dallas just destroys Pittsburgh in this deal. Very disappointing. Metcalf and Pickens, I was looking forward to it. The Steelers are nowhere right now. They don't know what they're doing. They really don't have an idea about this upcoming season. They're going to have to rely on Will Howard and Caleb and these rookies being great. But I'm just disappointed in the team building a little bit. They had a window with Cleveland being bad. They couldn't really get Rodgers. And if they're now going to get Aaron Rodgers, what exactly are you doing if you are the Pittsburgh Steelers?